Vasudevendra yogendram natva jnana pradam gurum mumukshunam hitarthaya tattvabodho bhidiyate. So last week we have stressed a few points that, before going into Vedanta, we need to know what is Vedanta. And we said that it is a means of knowledge. So now Nenu made a good point. I like what Nenu did. She contacted me and she asked, can we have some assignments after the class? And I thought, what a wonderful idea. So she decided to create something as homework out of what we did yesterday. And one of the assignments was that I posed, what's the difference between a school of thought and philosophy? They're in one same category, and a means of knowledge. And she made a comparison, and she said something very interesting. She used the elephant with six blind men and the elephant. So each of the fellas, right, who are investigating different parts of the elephant, that's their area of speciality, and that's speciality that is a school of thought. So it's like one fella looks at the world through the trunk, another fella looks at the world through the tail, another looks at through the stomach, and so they call that their philosophy. That's their view of the world. And so each one has their area of speciality, which is okay. It still exercises our discretion, our discernment. However, Vedanta is not this, because Vedanta is not interested in taking parts of reality and then assigning an absolute onto it and then ignoring everything else. This is not what Vedanta is, because, then what, you're missing out on everything else. So Vedanta is a means of knowledge by which you see the whole elephant. So this means we see the leg, and how is the leg connected to the trunk, and the trunk, the tusk. And so there's no ignoring any part. It's just understanding where things belong, why they belong there, and what function they play in this big picture, and what is my relationship to their function. So this is what Vedanta is. It is a view of the whole reality, and your connection to this reality. And so now, this means of knowledge, you say, what is a means, right? What is this word means when we say? A means is okay, you tell me, what is a means? What comes to mind? A means. Michael.
A methodology.
A methodology. So now, what is the methodology, right? So it is a way by which you arrive to the conclusion. It is a way by which you apply A, B, C, D, and every one of those parts is well understood. And when they're all well understood, you're able to put them together and arrive to the knowledge of the subject matter. Now, what's the subject matter in Vedanta? Is it the tusk? No, not just the tusk. Is it the leg? Not just the leg. It is the whole reality. And that whole reality is yourself. It is Atma. It is yourself. So we're not just understanding something over there. We're understanding ourselves. So as we will see, that this whole reality is just you. The whole reality is made out of you right now. Obviously not your body, your mind, because that is obviously, very limited in every way. But we have to understand, what is this word you, this word I, what does it really refer to? And from that I, the whole reality comes. Okay, so that was the means of knowledge. What is the purpose for means of knowledge? It is not to know things. It is not to know facts, like what is Atma, what is the three bodies. These are all facts. We're not interested in this. You don't think about these things when challenges come in life. Rather, it is to transform our life. It is to change our perception, especially when things are not going so well. Because, hey, anyone can say, I am Atma, I am the whole, when things are going well. But in those times when things are not going well, right? In those very moments, if one's perception remains without kind of derailing oneself to their old ways, then your knowledge is firm. Then Vedanta has really taken hold. And that is what we really want. We want this knowledge to take hold, to hold you, especially when challenges come that will otherwise cause one to tilt onto their previous baseline, to their previous mode of being. Okay, so it is a direct transformational method that we are interested in, nothing else. Everything else is just gonna sort of come and go, come and go, come and go. You can learn all of the religions in the world, what's Sufism, what's Buddhism, how many sects of Buddhism, all of this philosophy. So what? So what? Who am I? Who is this person that knows all of this stuff? So Vedanta comes back onto the subject, and therefore it has an impact onto thyself, onto yourself. Okay. And then we ask the question, what kind of text is Tattvabodha, the one that we're doing, Tattvabodha? What kind of text is this? And we call this a prakarana grantha. So prakarana just means topical, right? Topical text. Grantha is a text. So this means it is a topic whereby it's going to take different topics from the Upanishads, from the Brahma Sutra, from the Bhagavad Gita. And as we said, those three are called Shastra. Okay, so it's going to take Shastric statements and it's going to analyze them in the light of connect those analysis onto yourself. Okay, so Prakarana Grantha. And now who's the author? Apparently, Adi Shankara is the author. I say apparently because there's actually no proof. And we will see why soon. I will kind of point out why it's probably not Adi Shankara, but it's Shankara from some, maybe from the south. We don't know, but we'll see now. Okay. So before we go into the verse, any questions, comments, observations? First verse. So Vasudevendra Yogindram Natva Jnana Pradam Gurum Mumukshunam Hitarthaya Tattvabodha Abhidiyate. Okay. See, in any language, right, when all you do is you look at the last verb, right? You just go to the last verb. So what's the verb here? Abhidiyate, right? So abhidiyate is expounded. So now what is expounded? Tattvabodha. Okay, so what? This tattva, so knowledge of reality is expounded or is being expounded. By whom? Jnana pradam gurum. By a guru. And who is this? And who is this guru? He's the one who jnana pradam. He is the one who gives knowledge. Gives knowledge of what? Gives knowledge of Tattvabodha. So now look at the second word, Vasudevendra Yogindram. So natva. So having prostrated, that means that's a gerund. So having prostrated to guru, natva gurum. So having prostrated to the guru, who jnana pradam, the one who gives jnanam, the one who gives knowledge. So after having prostrated to the guru, who gives this knowledge? For what purpose? It says hitarthaya. So hita is easy understanding, and artha is purpose. So for what purpose does the guru give knowledge? Hitarthaya. For the purpose of easy understanding. Easy understanding of what? Of Tattvabodha. Tattvabodha of reality. That means of easy understanding of the knowledge of reality. And for whom is this guru, who is the knower of knowledge, to whom is this knowledge being given? Can you see here in the verse?
Mumukshunam.
Mumukshunam. So in other words, good, Amina. So in other words, having prostrated to my guru, I now shall expound this reality for the purpose of easy understanding to whom? To those who are mumukshus, who are desirous of liberation. So right now we can already ascertain for whom is this text for. Is it for someone who wants to make money? No. Is it someone who wants status or power? No. It is only for those who are desirous of moksha, liberation. That is it. If someone's here to know about Vedanta and what is this all about compared to Buddhism, this is not going to last very long. So if one wants direct liberation in the class, right? Or in the class, that's not up to me to say, but that's their goal in life, then that is for whom this text is written. Now, who is this guru? Vasudeva. Okay, now look at this. Now, Vasudeva is Krishna, right? So now who's Adi Shankara's guru? Gaudapada. So now, this person, this author prostrates to his teacher, which is Vasudeva. But we know that Adi Shankara's teacher is not Vasudeva. Adi Shankara's guru is Gaudapada. Okay, not Gaudapada, Govinda. So now you already kind of think, is this really by Adi Shankara? We don't know. But look, either way, it doesn't matter because the text is as good as having been written by Adi Shankara. Okay, so in other words, after I prostrate to my teacher, Vasudeva, and who is this teacher? Who is Krishna? Vasudeva is Krishna. Who is Krishna? He is the Yogindram. He is the king of yogis. So he's not just one who sort of, has these siddhis or powers. He is the one who is the king of all yogis. That means you cannot find a better yogi, a better, more competent person than Krishna. He is the yogi of all yogis. In fact, what is, just a little bit topic, what's the uniqueness of Krishna compared to other avatars like, say, Rama? Because Krishna has a very unique place. What's different with Krishna compared to other?
Is it that he's an avatara?
Yeah, Avatara, yeah. Now, he is an Avatara, okay. But so is, Rama and so on. So is, Yeshua, Ben Yosef, Jesus, whoever. We don't know who is an Avatar or not. But in the context of the Vedas, Krishna specifically is an Avatara of self-knowledge. So that is it. He's specifically oriented for self-knowledge. Whereas all of the other, avatars that we mentioned are like Rama. What do they come down for? In fact, the word avatara, by the way, means to come down. That one who comes down. So, like Rama, he's also an avatara, apparently. Now, what kind of a function does Rama play? He takes out asuras. He takes out the bad guys, right? He restores ethics into the world. Whereas Krishna, he specifically is only for the sake of self-knowledge. Now, by the way, how many students did Krishna have? Look at this. The greatest yogi, right? Yogindram, the yogi of all yogis. How many students did Krishna have in his lifetime?
One.
That is so amazing, right? That was Arjuna, right? The god of all gods, only one single student. Now you talk about numbers, right? What do numbers really mean? It puts the thing in a whole different perspective. Something quite interesting. Okay. So now, having prostrated to my guru, who gives knowledge, and my guru, in this case, the author's guru, is Vasudeva. In your case, the guru will be someone else. It doesn't really matter, but the one who gives knowledge. After having done that, what happens? Knowledge, abhidhyate, is expounded. That means knowledge of reality is expounded for the purpose of easy understanding. To whom? For those who want to understand the nature of reality, otherwise called mumokshu, right? The one whose only purpose is moksha. That's it. Okay, so let's chant this. I'll go first. Vasudevendra yogindram natva jnana pradam gurum Mumukshunam hitarthaya tattvabodho bhidiyate. Okay, so this is what we will chant every time we come to class. And it's also useful to remember, right? So that's why I gave you word for word explanation, so that there's some meaning, it's not just sort of Sanskrit, like what does this mean? So that's what I'll sort of do for all of the verses, not all of them, but some important verses. We will know what the meanings are. Okay, so let's go to the second verse. Sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikarinam moksha sadhana bhutam tatva viveka prakaram vakshyamaha. Now I want to look at this, put focus on this word viveka at the bottom. Tatva viveka. So see, what is viveka? We often say it is discrimination, but this is not a useful word because we already got too much discrimination in the world. It's better to say discriminative inquiry. Now, look at this. Suppose I say to you, I see there's two words, right? One of them is vichara, like atma vichara, right? This is vichara and viveka, they're similar words. But what is vichara? Suppose I say to you, what is water made of, right? And then I present to you the table of elements. And you say, well, water is made of 2 particles of hydrogen, 1 particle of oxygen. Now, you sort of had to pick out, right, out of this whole table, which atoms comprise water, which is okay. But all of the information was provided for you. That's vichara. But now when we say viveka, which also means discriminative inquiry, this is a little bit different. Suppose, for example, okay, now, before I do that, why would you want to perform a discriminative inquiry, right? Why would you want to pick out one from the other? Why? Because there is a confusion. So in this case, unlike the word vichara, like discriminative inquiry, in this case, I don't quite know that water is H2 and 1O. I don't quite know that. So I have to sort of sort out. In order to come to the conclusion. For example, suppose that there are 2 things. One of them is a shiny crystal, clear, wonderful, pure, shiny crystal. And now you put a cloth behind the crystal, a red cloth. Okay. And now you look at the crystal, you look at the front of the crystal. How does the crystal appear now? Does it appear clear? No. It seems like what? The crystal has taken on the attributes of the cloth. So now the crystal, owing to its confusion of not quite knowing what am I and what am I not, owing to that confusion, what does the crystal now experience? It experiences itself whatever conditions the cloth goes through. So if the cloth goes on fire, right, that's called a mind that's kind of, on fire, then owing to the fact that the crystal doesn't quite know, it cannot discern itself from the cloth, whatever happens to the cloth is as though happening to the crystal. Therefore, in this case, what has to be applied? Viveka, a discriminative inquiry to discern that which I am from that which I am not. Therefore, when it comes to tatva viveka, what is being discerned? That one who is free of attributes, that one who is pure, and that which is always undergoing different conditions of different states, different conditionalities, right? It doesn't matter what different it is. The point is, it is different. So this means because there is a confusion between the blue crystal, the crystal doesn't know any more than it's just a blue crystal, and the red crystal and the pink crystal, right? And the black crystal. So all life, the crystal experiences itself as what? It experiences itself as a cloth and itself, right? These two things have been now intimately connected together, so much so that it's almost like the crystal has no chance to rest, right? It's always subject to the ever-changing condition of the cloth. And tomorrow the cloth is going to age, and therefore the crystal thinks what? Oh, I am aging. And then someone kind of, puts a little bit of fire to the crystal, to the cloth, and now the crystal undergoes that pain, that emotional pain also. So this is why, owing to the lack of discriminative inquiry on the part of the individual, on the part of I, therefore this I is now these two things mixed together intimately. And for that reason, I is going through this life that we call a mixture of sorrow and joy. And it's all sorts of mixtures. It doesn't matter what, but we're all very familiar with that. Okay. Now, suppose that this crystal, which is pure crystal, none of these things belong to it whatsoever. Not at any time did any condition ever belong to the crystal. Not in the past, not in the present, nor will it happen in the future. Okay, that is a fact. That is the truth. But suppose that the crystal now starts to apply Tattva viveka. Remember, this word Tattva is the crystal. Okay, is the crystal. Suppose it starts to apply Tattva viveka, discriminative inquiry. And it knows, now it goes, okay, I understood. This cloth, this condition, this emotion, this thought, right? This thought is as though mine, but it's not really mine. I am actually free of this. I'm actually free of this all the time. There's never one moment when I'm not free of whatever is going on, whatever is showing up. Suppose the crystal now gets this knowledge. What kind of knowledge is it? What kind of an understanding is it? Is it an experience? Will the crystal now say, hey, look, I am now experiencing myself? Is it an experience? Remember, the crystal was always there all along. Will the crystal now say, hey, look, now having known that these conditions don't belong to me, I'm now experiencing myself? Can you say that? It's called what? The crystal was there all along. What does experience have to do with any of it? It is a cognitive understanding. You understand the difference? It's a cognitive understanding. The crystal was always experiencing none other than itself. On top of that, of course, was the burning of the cloth, was the clean cloth, was the colored cloth, and so on. This is normal. But the crystal was experiencing only itself all along. Now, having applied this viveka, this discriminative inquiry, what kind of an understanding is it? That's what we call an enlightened crystal, by the way. Is the crystal now experiencing itself as some kind of a magical state, somewhere elevated so high above the world? Not at all. It's experiencing exactly the same as it was always experiencing all along, itself, minus the confusion. And what is that confusion? That all of these conditions do not belong to me. It is a cognitive understanding. That is it. It's got nothing to do with an experience. In fact, if the crystal were to make a mistake and convert this into an experience, what has the crystal done? It's attributed another cloth onto itself that just feels better, that looks shinier. That's it. And then it mistakes itself and says, look, I am now experiencing myself as elevated being. No. The crystal is full of itself. Whatever shows up is other than the crystal, because the crystal is just pure. None of the things belong to me. Now, this we will investigate, of course, what is this crystal? We will go into this a little bit deeper, but this is just an introduction. Okay, so that's the word. Second line, Tattva viveka. I don't know what, but I'm using a book. So Tattva viveka. Okay, so understand what the word viveka means now? Yeah. So see, this is the beauty of going word for word in Sanskrit. So now you kind of get this intimate, like there's an intimacy with these words. It's not just sort of read the verse, put the book down, and then talk. Now can you look at the verse and go, Tattva viveka. Now look at this word prakaram. Prakaram. So this is, what does prakaram mean? Method. So let's go back to the verse. So vakshyamaha, the last word, vakshyamaha. So again, this is a verb. You just go right to the end in Sanskrit and you kind of get the context of the whole sentence. So vakshyamaha is to explain. So what shall be explained? The prakaram, the method to tatva viveka. That means the method by which the crystal discerns itself from other than itself. In fact, we will see soon there's nothing other than you. So even this whole thing of self and not self, I tell you, even this has to be, even that is going to kind of go away, and you'll see soon in the class. Okay. So vakshyamaha prakaram. So we shall explain the method to this tattva viveka. Okay. So in other words, what are we doing? We're applying a discriminative inquiry of Atma, I. When I say the word Atma, it just means I. Whatever that I is, no need to philosophize. Just whatever that I is, whatever you think the I is, that's what Atma is. So discriminative inquiry of Atma, and why so? Because Atma, I, am taken for what? Anatma. Atma, anatma. Self and not self. Okay? The crystal from the cloth. For that reason, owing to the fact that there is a confusion, since how long ago was this confusion? Since when did this confusion start? Now, suppose someone says, right, it started when I was born. That's a logical flaw, and we're going to look at it later. Why you cannot say that? Because some people will come and say, this whole thing started. How do you prove that I was here before? How do you prove that? How do you prove that, this is not my first life? So this is a little bit, more logic, and we will apply later on. So when did this confusion start? It never started. It was there for a long, long time. Because it was there for an extraordinarily long time, this tattva viveka has to be applied. Otherwise, what happens? The crystal continues as a cloth. Okay, life after life, it continues to experience itself. One life, it experiences itself as a really royal color, like a rainbow, happy color cloth. We call that, punyam. Lots of luck. The crystal has lots of luck onto itself. So one life, it experiences itself as this colorful, rainbowish sort of crystal, and everyone likes this crystal. People that everyone likes. They're just sort of, they got charisma, they've got so much appeal, and you're like, oh my God, I wish I could be like that. That's called a rainbow crystal. Other crystals, they're like simple, one bland color. No one looks at us, right? We're just ordinary people. We kind of blend in, nothing. So we don't maybe not have as much sort of luck on our side. But what's the same? Color. The color. I mean, the crystal's the same, but the color is different. So why give importance? Why give importance to someone who's got lots of colors? How is that doing you any good? It's just a color. Okay? The crystal is a crystal. The crystal is clear. Adhikari. So sadhana chatushtaya sampanna adhikarinam. Okay, forget about everything else. Let's just focus on the word adhikari. Okay, so now who is this adhikari? Who is an adhikari? Now, before I answer that, suppose we're having, listen carefully, please. Suppose we're having a physical class right now. And I say to you, hey, suppose I'm sitting right in the front and you're sitting in a chair, and I say to you, hey, come and get this cup from me. Just walk over and get this cup from me. And I just wait. Okay. How many people are going to walk up? We don't know. Okay. So Kyung-Will. Okay. Now, what about those who have not walked up? Right? Some people have walked up and some people have not walked up to grab this cup. The question is why? Why have some people come and some people not come? What was the determining factor that gave you the power to either stay in your seat or to get up and then to walk over? What was that determining factor?
Free will.
Free will. Free will. Excellent, Lorena. Choice. So in this case, when action is involved, you always have choice. You always say, in fact, you not only have choice to get this cup from me, you also have a choice how to go about doing it. You can jump over people, you can kind of push people, you can, you can do whatever you want. So in other words, whenever there is action involved, there is choice involved, there is free will involved. Therefore, when it comes to action, there is no issue there because you can apply, you've got what? You've got the capacity to choose. You can remain in your seat or you can come and get the cup away from me. But now look at this. Okay, please open your eyes and keep looking at this cup. Okay, now keep looking at this cup. Okay, now look at this. While looking at the cup, I want you to not see the cup. While looking at the cup, do not see the cup no matter what. Do your hardest to not see the cup. Come on. We're all smart. We can do this. While opening your eyes, looking at the cup, don't see the cup. Tell me this. How much free will did you have now? Considering your eyes are working. Zero. Yeah, I can see Carla. Zero free will. So in other words, when action is involved, we have free will. When it comes to knowledge taking place of an object, when it comes to any kind of knowledge taking place, if your senses are working, if your eyes are open, if your mind is available, if your ears are open, you have how much choice? Zero. Knowledge is going to take place whether we want it or not. You understand this? Considering the senses are working, no choice but for knowledge to take place. However, suppose we have a surgeon. Okay, suppose someone is sick and they need an operation. They need to go to the hospital. And the tumor, the doctor discovers there's a tumor there and it needs to be removed. So the doctors, they are available. The hospital is available. The car is available to take the patient from their house to the hospital. The support is available. The patient is available. The tumor is available. Everything is available for this tumor to be removed. It's all there. Conditions are perfect. However, the tumor still doesn't get removed. Why? Because the patient says what? I am not ready. I am not ready. Why aren't you ready? Everything's going to work out fine. We've done this before. There are no casualties. There are no problems. It's not a big tumor. The doctors are great. You're near one of the best hospitals there are. You're capable. You can move. You can walk to the hospital. You can still think. Why not? Because I'm not ready. Can you do anything then? No, you can't force the patient. If the patient is not ready, no matter whether the knowledge is available, if the guru is available, if the means of knowledge is available, what's the issue? Readiness. I am not ready. Therefore, even if Tattvabodha is expounded, to whom? To the adhikari. Who is an adhikari? The one who has readiness. Now, suppose Tattvabodha is expounded by the guru who has the capacity to teach to the one who is not ready for moksha. Is moksha going to take place? Well, let's not say yes or no. It might, because it's not the end of the world. Why not? Because we still have sadhana chatushtaya. That means we still can qualify the individual through the course of time, of course, so that knowledge may take place. Okay? So in other words, look at this. So adhikari. Okay. Now, are you available? Is Atma available? Tell me, when is Atma not available? When are you not available? Right? You're always available. Is the knowledge available? Yeah, we're going through the whole knowledge book now. I'm holding it here. This is the knowledge. Is the teacher available? The teacher is available. Is the Wi-Fi connection available? Is a good connection you have? It's available. Okay. Is anything wrong right now? Is kind of like someone drilling outside your room, construction going on? Maybe not. But even if it was, you can still do something. Okay. So these circumstances are perfect. Atma is there. Knowledge is there. Pramana is there. The guru is there. The environment is also there. There is no reason to complain. No, one has to use their imagination to complain, in fact. However, if I am not ready, if the mind is not ready, then no matter what, moksha is not going to take place. So therefore, we have to now ask, what qualifies a ready student? In this case, the word student is adhikari. Adhikari is the one who wants moksha. Why do they want moksha? Why does an adhikari want moksha? In fact, an adhikari is a mumukshu, the one who is desirous of moksha. Because they are ready. Simple as that. Okay? Now look at this. Sampanna adhikarinam. Sampanna, this word. So sampanna means endowed with. So the one who is, so this means an adhikari who is endowed, sampanna, with what? With sadhana chatushtaya. That means for sadhana just means means by which I attain. Sadhana means means by which I attain something. Okay? And chatushtaya means fourfold. So means by which I attain what? Capacity for tatva viveka, not moksha. Okay, let's just go back to this important point. So an adhikari, so what qualifies, what makes a student capable of performing tatva viveka? Answer? Sadhana chatushtaya, fourfold requirements, which we will see very soon. So, but what would tatva viveka give? Moksha sadhanam. The last word, moksha sadhanam bhutam. Okay, so look at this order. So who is, listen to the question, who is capable of performing tatva viveka? A adhikari. Adhikari means one who is endowed with fourfold qualifications. Sadhana chatushtaya. Having done tatva viveka, what would that give? That will give moksha. So now let's look at the verse. Vakshyamaha, the last word, vakshyamaha. So we shall explain what? We shall explain prakaram, we shall explain the method to Tattva viveka. So we shall explain the method called Tattva viveka, which gives what? Moksha, which gives moksha. And for whom is this method prescribed? An adhikari. And who is an adhikari? The one who has readiness. And what makes you ready? The one who is endowed, sampanna sadhana chatushtaya, the one who is endowed with fourfold qualifications. Okay. Now let me ask another question. What makes an individual qualified? What makes an individual, in fact, this word qualified, maybe we'll change it to the word ready. Maybe that's a better word. What makes you ready? What makes an adhikari ready to enter a topic?
The goal.
Their what?
The goal, the purpose. Strong having a purpose.
Good. Okay. So Nenu is saying, so a strong goal, like, certainty. This is what I want. This is the intention behind, the drive behind it. Okay. So now what we're talking about here are traits, right? So we can say many traits now. We can say, single pointedness and dispassion and maturity, and all of these things are wonderful. But there's another thing that we often don't think about. What is it that makes a person qualified to enter a topic? Suppose, for example, we want to go into a calculus class. Okay? A calculus class. And the person says to you, the interviewer says to you, what qualities do you have, right? And you say, I've got love, I've got compassion. That's what I have. I've got love and I've got compassion. This is a calculus class, right? Tell me, are they going to let you in? I mean, you've got one of the best traits you can have, right? What more can you have than love and compassion? This is awesome. And yet, look at this. Because I'm in a calculus class, even if I have certain traits, they're not going to get me entry into the class. Now, suppose the interviewer says, this is wonderful, and we wish all students had love and compassion, but we've got some haters in the class. They don't, probably nowhere near compassion or love that we've ever found, and they're on top of the class. You see? They're on top of the class. They don't have love and compassion. So it is wonderful, but I can guarantee you to walk in with a calculus class where you require analysis, a certain trait, love and compassion may not be what's going to get you to the top. Maybe people will be more patient with you, will give you more time, but it is specifically and strictly not enough to gain you entry into calculus. Love and compassion, wonderful, but we need something else. So this is qualities, right? This is qualities, but there's something else that makes you qualified. What determines whether the person is qualified to enter the class or not? It is the subject matter. Calculus. Yeah, calculus. You see? That's what makes you qualified. The subject matter is what makes one person say no and another person say yes. If the subject matter is very complex, that means fewer people are capable of gaining entry because it requires a more specific level of kind of mind, a more specific mind. The easier the topic is, the easier the subject matter is, the more people will gain entry into that because it doesn't require these specific qualities. Okay? So what determines one's qualifications? It is the subject matter. Now, so what does this mean? Let's not use the word, in calculus, the word, it's strict, right? It's strictly complicated, we could say. It is a complex subject, calculus. But suppose we take something that requires discernment of the crystal and the cloth, right? Where they're so intimately entwined. And now we have to sort of see which one is which, okay? That is a subject matter. That is a matter called self-knowledge, by the way. That is a matter called Tattvabodha, knowledge of reality. So now you can see what? Because the subject matter is so intimate, it is so subtle, that right there determines who is capable of truly kind of performing this viveka, this discriminative inquiry or not. Now you say, well, geez, does that mean that, do I have any chance here? Well, the answer is yes, of course we have a chance. Otherwise we would just say, oh, no chance for you, goodbye. Next life, maybe, if you find a teacher, next life. No, it's not saying whether one's got a chance or not. That's not what it's about. Because we still can develop these qualities besides loving compassion in order to gain entry into this text, into this knowledge, which is tatva viveka, which leads into what? Moksha. Okay. All right. Now,
I have a question, Andre.
Yes, Elizabeth.
So you're saying that we need to have these 4 qualities, right? So discrimination, dispassion, the 6, you're going to go through it. But what if you have a desire to know, this knowledge, but you are not probably discerning in every single element? So this would make it really hard for a lot of people to enter Vedanta or to even have access to it, because they haven't really developed all of these requirements yet?
Yes and no, Elizabeth. Yes, in a sense that, see, Vedanta requires basically two main entry points, 2 main qualifications. Number 1 is this viveka, right? Viveka, discriminative inquiry. So there has to be a level of thinking, thoughtfulness, right? There has to be a level of sort of involving your capacity to discern, to see, as we will see soon, that which I am, that which I am not. There has to be a certain capacity to use your intellect and to work things out, to solve problems, to come to the conclusion. Now, everyone has this more or less, right? That's the beauty of being a human being. But there's a level that Vedanta requires, which can be developed, of course. The second trait is experience. Someone can have a very good, look at this, someone can have an excellent viveka capacity. We call those scientists, physicists, rocket scientists, mathematicians. They have excellent viveka, discriminative inquiry. But what else do you need? You need experience. This is called emotional maturity. If someone is sort of just constantly working on, mathematics and logic and rationale, the head stuff, constantly head stuff, but just the basic of, like loving compassion, these are things that come through experience. These things come through time. These things come through falling down, getting up, developing patience. Because if one doesn't have patience, then what happens? Oh, come on, this is not working for me. Get on with it. And therefore they're out before we even finish the text. So experience, just general maturity, general life experience is equally as valid as viveka. You see? So this means we cannot quite say, a lot of people are now disqualified because someone can have a lot of experience working in psychology, working with clients, working in the corporates, even in business, you require a lot of kind of testing, what's working, what's not working. All of these things kind of mix in. So there's absolutely no way to say who's definitively qualified or not. You see, it's a personal experience. So this means we're not even to worry about whether one's qualified or not. That's not even a concern. All our concern is really just to go through the text, right? Some parts are understood. Some parts will not be understood. That is okay. We have a lot of time in this class, so you can ask all you want, so we can explain and make it very clear. Vedanta is, going back to Elizabeth's point, like a picture. And we have this, show you a big picture of something. Or in fact, suppose a picture of, a forest. And I just show you a little bit, like a small part. These games where they show you a little and then they add more, and then you have to figure out, you go, it's an airplane. It's a person. They show you like one single part, like a foot or a finger. And then you I'm not quite sure what this is. And then what happens? They go, okay, we'll add a little bit more. And you you're in the twilight zone. You want to say what it is, but it's not quite clear yet. No problem. We add a little bit more. And you go, is that a foot? Is that a head or a hand? I don't know. Can you add a little bit more? Okay, next chapter, we add a little bit more. And there's this one point when enough is added. And in that point, what happens in that point? When enough is added that in your understanding, the whole thing becomes what? Instantly clear. You know that? Can you relate to this? Just enough is added until the whole thing is revealed in your understanding, like that. Now, the only difference between, when it comes to understanding is some people need a little bit more to be shown. Some need a little bit less. But either way, we don't stop because we keep adding more metaphors, more examples, more analogies, more means of knowledge, more prakaram, more method, until the whole thing is understood at once. And this is why Vedanta is a growing clarity, It means there is no such thing. See, we have this funny idea, right? Enlightenment, one fine Sunday, one fine Saturday morning, things are not going well. And then suddenly at 2:35 p.m., right, it's all clear, right? And all of my sadness falls away. And then suddenly I'm smiling and everything's now fine. This is cuckoo spirituality. This is not the reality. This is what we imagine how it is. In reality, Vedanta is a growing clarity. Just like that picture, we add a little bit, and then challenges come. And then we kind of switch back into our old mode. And then we kind of come back, and then we keep on adding. And little bit by little bit, our emotional maturity strengthens. So this means more and more in those tough times, we don't derail ourselves. We don't lose track of this knowledge. This knowledge stays with us all the time, most of the time, and then eventually all the time. So this is a growing clarity, like building a house, brick by brick by brick. So first thing we need to do is drop these silly notions that something magical is supposed to happen. This is all childish stuff. It is little by little. It is a growing clarity, week by week, day by day. This is the nature of how any knowledge takes place. And Vedanta is no different. This clarity of Tatva, of reality, is no different. So this means it does require, as I said, not only viveka, but also experience. It does require an emotional maturity of the individual. Okay. And so these two things are there to be developed, and they keep on making us more ready.
Andre, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
I think this is a very important point, because if you're in the yoga world or many other traditions, you're looking for that experience of the self, that enlightenment experience. Now, if through self-inquiry, ignorance is removed, there can be an emotional experience attached to that. But that emotional experience does not belong to the self. It's another imposition, another veil that belongs to the Jiva. So recognition of the self as that crystal that's unchanging and eternal, and that is me, the accompanying emotional experience of that recognition belongs to the non-eternal Jiva. It's a different order of reality.
Yeah. So what Robert is saying, thank you, Robert, is that, you see, okay. Suppose, you discover hey, we're going to have a child, knowledge takes place. Hey, we're going to have a nice little child, a healthy boy or healthy girl. What happens when that knowledge takes place? Naturally, you're happy, right? And emotional experience follows. So emotional experience follows whenever we have some knowledge that is true. That is, it's a true object, like there will be a child. So that's not a lie. That is true fact. So when something gets revealed to us, an emotional response does naturally come. We cannot help it because, see, we cannot kind of separate our intellect from our emotions. They're one and the same. So what Robert is saying is when clarity comes, there are moments when the individual sort of has this emotional sense of freedom, right? They not only know, the crystal not only recognizes, I am free from this cloth, but also the crystal experiences a genuine sense of emotional well-being. And this well-being is a byproduct of what they know. They know, even though I appear, right? Even though I look like I am this burned up or this lovely cloth, which is mortal, which will age, which will kind of come to an end. Even though that is, I am not that, there is also a freedom. There is a certain emotional happiness that comes with that. So we cannot quite separate again and say, this is entirely a cognitive knowing and that is it with a full stop. Because a human being is not a A and B. We're a mixture of so many things together. So yeah, there is a cheerfulness that comes by one's recognition that they are, free from these kind of these conditions and these things that come in and go in life. Okay, this adhikari, right? This adhikari, the one who is ready. You'll be surprised how often in Vedanta we hear that this is intellectual knowledge. It is a very common statement. Andre, this is too intellectual. This is all in the head, right? Now, tell me this. Is there any kind of knowledge than intellectual knowledge? Where does knowledge take place but the intellect? You see? So again, this is an adhikari. He or she thinks, right? When these silly statements get made, this is intellectual knowledge. What do you mean it's intellect? Of course it's intellectual because all understanding takes place in the intellect. Where else is it going to take? In your nose, right? It cannot take anywhere else but your intellect. Or we say, for example, you got to have a good mental attitude. Hey, all attitude is mental. Why put the unnecessary word mental in there? Okay, so this is just showing how this adhikari who is using their viveka is thinking, right? They're not just sort of letting these statements pass by and they just sort of go, yeah, it's like that. They question things. They find the logical fallacies in these statements. And so they question, and this is what's required this is what makes one ready. This is what is the first side, the viveka part, the one who does think, intellectual knowledge. Hey, what do you mean? It's of course it's intellectual, mental attitude. Of course it's mental. Just say it is knowledge and it is an attitude, but don't say intellect nor the word mental. They are unnecessary words. Therefore, an adhikari, the one who is ready, knows this much. They're able to question basic statements that go unchecked usually, and they're able to sort of question them and clarify and sometimes ask a question. So this is an adhikari. Okay, so now let's look at the verse. So vakshyamaha. So we shall explain the method of tatva viveka, in other words, of discriminative inquiry, which is in the form of, which gives moksha, which is a sadhana, which is a means by which moksha is gained. And for whom is this tatva viveka for? It is for an adhikari, the one who has readiness. And what makes an adhikari? What makes you an adhikari? You are endowed, sampanna, you're endowed with fourfold qualifications, fourfold requirements, fourfold helpers. Okay, doesn't matter. It's just fourfold sadhana, fourfold chatushtaya. Okay, now look at this. Now you're going to say, well, geez, what if I don't have these fourfold? Understand this. This is just what the book is saying. So it doesn't now mean, if you say, oh, I don't have this quality that is part of sadhana chatushtaya, therefore I have no chance. This is just what the book is saying. It's just one book of the many books. So again, you have to question, right? Instead of taking it as an absolute. So no one's going to have all four, guaranteed. No one's going to have all four, which is okay. Some people will have more on one side, more or less on the other side. This is normal, but it doesn't say anything in terms of whether one is going to understand or not. So it's impossible to put an absolute onto these things. Okay, so I think that summarizes this verse. I think we've covered everything. So again, I want to, this word viveka, remember, like a crystal cloth. Okay, same thing with I. Despite my thoughts, as though a cloth, despite my emotional complexes, as though a cloth, despite all of them, I remain free, just like that crystal. That's viveka, that cognitive understanding. So what is then moksha? What is moksha? It is a cognitive understanding, just putting things where they belong, making oneself clear. Despite all of this, I am not subject to all of this. Despite all of this, I'm actually free of all of this. So in that freedom, in that cognitive understanding, the individual is still able to maturely handle things in life. They're still able to be available to others, to help out. But in that process, they know it is just an order. It is an order that we will talk about. And that order expresses itself in a million different ways. It expresses itself through your body, through this body. But despite this order, I remain intrinsically free of this order, which manifests itself as different as the world. Okay. Okay, next verse. Sadhana chatushtayam kim nitya anitya vastu vivekaha. All right, so let's talk about, sadhana. What is sadhana? Sadhana chatushtayam kim. Sadhana is a means to accomplish something. So if you want to make a cake, we call that cake sadhana. Okay, a means to accomplish a cake. In this case, we are talking about sadhana for moksha, a means to understand oneself, to understand the reality. Therefore, sadhana chatushtaya. All right, so what is the means? What are the fourfold means by which I am capable of performing tatva viveka? What are the fourfold requirements that will give me the maturity to perform tatva viveka, which will give moksha? All right. Now, nitya, anitya, vastu vivekaha. What does the word viveka mean? Viveka? You probably said discriminative inquiry, right? Not discrimination, discriminative inquiry. Much better than discrimination. Now let's look at this word anitya. It says nitya, anitya, vastu. The word vastu is reality. It can also mean object or reality. So now anitya, what is anitya? Anitya is that which does not obtain in the 3 periods of time. It is not available in the 3 periods of time. For example, you're hungry. You were hungry some time ago. You're not hungry now, but you will be hungry again in the future. So therefore, hunger is anitya because you're not hungry all the time. I mean, maybe some people are, but still, you know, they're not hungry in a dream. So they're not quite hungry all the time. Okay. Anitya, that which does not obtain in the 3 periods of time. It is therefore time bound. Okay. It originates, it is there, and it's no longer there. That means what is here now was not here yesterday. What is here now will not be here tomorrow. When it comes tomorrow, it will be enjoyed for a moment, and then it will go away, replaced by something else. Therefore, it is time-bound. It starts and it ends. It changes in duration, it changes in quality, it changes in its intensity, it changes in its sort of texture. It's just a nature of, it's limited. It's limited. Now, what does this word limited mean? It means it's always locked to itself. It's always isolated to itself, right? Red. If it's red, it's not blue. If it's blue, it's not green. If it's green, it's not cow. If you're a cow, you're not a pig. If one is a pig, one is not human. If one is human, one is not a devata. If one is a devata, they're not human. If you're a Vishnu, you're not Brahma, unless you interpret that differently. You know, it could be one. Okay, so limited to itself. Not only is it limited to itself, it is also not available in the same intensity, in the same constancy, in the same sort of, its nature does not retain throughout 3 periods of time. Therefore, not knowing this, suppose all we know in this world is anitya. That's all there is, anitya. Okay, what happens now? Oh, okay, I want heaven. Heaven is anitya. It's time bound, by the way. You go up there, relax, have a good time, come back. You know, suppose right now I say to you, look at this. Someone in this class, maybe myself included, has already been to heaven. Because we will see that creation is, you know, without beginning. So this means an individual probably was already all sorts of things, including have gone to heaven. What are you doing here now? Exactly. You see?
Punya ran out.
Yeah, exactly. Your sweets ran out, right? You came back to Earth to get more sweets. So look at this. Now, just suppose, hypothetically speaking, whether you want to, you know, sort of take on this past life or not, it doesn't matter for now. Look at this. Suppose at some life you were doing all year long, every year, rejected everyone only for the sake of going to heaven. You know, like, I want heaven, I want heaven. Yeah, but you know, you need to attend to your family. No, I want heaven, I want heaven. Everything you did was for the sake of heaven, and you got heaven. And someone told you, look, heaven is not permanent. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I want heaven. Look, heaven is going to be a great place, but you'll come back. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I want heaven. I want heaven. And you just fell from heaven and you were born in this life. You fell from heaven and you were born in this life. And I ask you, how was heaven? How was heaven? You're like, I was not in heaven. Exactly. When you get amnesia every life, it's as though all of those efforts were gone to waste, in vain. Spent so many years in heaven enjoying lovely music, dancers, it was all there, lovely food, only to come back and again ask the same questions. The same questions as always. What am I doing here? What more is there? You know, is there something bigger than all this? So this is the problem with anitya. Chasing for time-bound things, chasing for those things which have a difference, a duration to themselves, have a ups and downs. Okay, so heaven, you know, we have what's the purpose of religion? Heaven, basically. You know, I've done some research. Christianity is heaven. Islam, it's heaven, right? Again, you know, this is so even religion is telling you, go and get some anitya, a better version of anitya. You know, maybe here it's a little bit too hard, but it's okay. Just work, devote, and you'll get better anityam. You're like, why? Why should I? It's just going to lead back into this, the same conversation, right? Like I said, you came back from heaven, assume, again, back in class for something different. Therefore, we have these Hare Krishna, devote to Krishna. This is again an interpretation of the book Bhagavad Gita. And they also want what? They want to sport in Kailasa or Vaikuntha with Krishna. So they're interested in what? Anityam. I remember with Robert, we were in India, Rani and they were there too. And we went to this Krishna temple to see it. And we were what? Surrounded by this girl who was so excited, unreal. I mean, almost like scary excited, so much in your face. And she was like, oh, just chant Hare Krishna, and look us up. We're there. It almost gives you no chance to respond. It's like in your face. This is all anityam. So it's okay. We're not saying, put them down. It's not the point. But eventually, the person develops enough maturity to stop this sort of chasing for these higher things, higher states and higher beings and angels and all of this. This is all, gone. One has to come over this need. This is called maturity. Okay. Next week, we will continue talking about what is nityam, and we will finish this verse. Okay. Any comments, observations, insights?
Andre, how would you answer a Christian who says that heaven is eternal? So once one goes to heaven, one stays there eternally with God.
Yeah, sure. So, I experienced in my samadhi eternity. How long did you experience eternity for? 5 minutes, 10 minutes. How can you experience what is eternal for 5 minutes? Understand? You cannot experience what is eternal for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1,000 years or 1 million years. What is eternal means it is even true right now. That means it obtains in all 3 periods of time, as we said 2 sessions ago. Okay, when we started out, we said the truth is that which obtains all the time. Therefore, to experience eternity is to not experience eternity.
I have a question, Andre. Between now and next class, what do you recommend that we do in between to sort of deepen the knowledge that we learned today?
Good question. Homework, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
homework, or just write a summary of whatever that helps.
Yeah. Okay. What is viveka? Question 1. Who is an adhikari? The qualified seeker, right? What makes up a qualified seeker? And what is anitya? Give me some creative examples of anityam. Does anyone want to prescribe something a little bit more? Maybe I think this is too easy.
Maybe why can't the self be experienced?
At this point, okay. Maybe it's a little too far into this already. Yeah, Robert's already, gone to the Gita. Let's reserve that.
Harder, right?
Yeah, good, excellent. But I think this is at this point a little bit too early. But let's have this next some sessions later. Okay. So the more we go into this, the more sophisticated these questions can become.
Just a cognitive understanding. What is the purpose of practices such as Kriya Yoga?
Kriya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, any all of the practices, japa, repetition. Okay. All of this is just to help you with focusing the mind so it doesn't doze off. It doesn't doze off while it's engaged in the class. That's it. Focusing the mind, keeping the mind concentrated. It's a skill. It's hard, but it's very important. Anything wonderful in life is done how? Through time and focus, through concentration. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.